Hi, my name is Jessica Lackey, and I'm here to give you the real behind the scenes, nitty gritty details about how I built my multi six figure business, one relationship at a time, no viral social media needed. All right, let's dive in. So, again, my name is Jessica Lackey. I'm a business and operations strategist that helps expertise based business owners like coaches, consultants, and service providers stop gambling on tactics and start investing in systems for sustainable growth. As you've probably picked up, most business advice feels like gambling. You need to post more, you need to go viral, you need to build faster, you need to hire sooner. I didn't really do any of that. Um, I started my business full time in 2021, which was after the COVID boom, or after the course based boom, once social media got really hard to build on. So I didn't really do any of this. I left what I call the entrepreneurial casino behind. And again, still built a multi six figure business with fewer than 2K followers on my Instagram or my email list. So, how did I do it? What are the secrets, Jessica? Well, let me take you back to 2021, where I had been side hustling as a life coach for 3 years after getting my life coach certification on the side of my job, when I decided to transition full time to a business advisor, COO, Chief Operating Officer. You might have seen some pretty impressive logos on my first page, but the people that were from McKinsey and Company, the people that were from Harvard Business School, or the people from Nike were working in big organizations, or they were working in startups. They weren't the operations work I wanted to do. I wanted to work with small 7-figure businesses, people with like teams of 5 to 10, or people who were growing, not the people who had been at McKinsey and Company, who had been at Harvard Business School. So I jumped out of this with zero network of who I wanted to serve, because I'd only been working in corporate for the longest time. So I had like 100 email subscribers when I started, almost no network. And for the first 2 years of building my list, that number had doubled to 200 people, which is not a very large lift. It was incredibly linear. It was literally like I was meeting people at different networking events and one by one growing my list. So success for the first 2 years was incredibly linear. So I made the money the only way I knew how, which is high touch, high time services, mostly gotten through my network and prior colleagues. So if you see the 2021 bar, I made over 6 figures, but I did almost all of that through contract consulting from my old gig. So prior clients and prior colleagues hired me to do the supply chain work I used to be doing before. And under my own quote unquote coaching book of business, I only sold $30,000 in the first year. But I knew that wasn't sustainable. The whole reason I wanted to be an entrepreneur was to not have to do the same heavy duty hands on keyboard work that I was doing that burnt me out. My second year, I was doing even more of that. So I did get those fractional COO gigs, and it turns out that I didn't like that very much. I was, very starting to be more successful in my coaching businesses, making $100,000 there. But I knew that it was all from a select number of clients, mostly from my internal network. And a lot of it was very heavy duty, hands on keyboard type of time. And I knew that work would burn me out, just like in corporate without the health insurance. But I didn't have a big list. You saw from the previous slide that in 2 years, my posting on social media and doing my newsletter had gotten me 200 people, which was barely more than what I started with. So I figured, if I'm not playing the social media game or playing it well, because I was trying, let's be clear, I was trying. I was posting on Instagram, I was doing the LinkedIn, but I wasn't growing my audience fast enough. So I said, well, how do I grow my audience to make more sales and maybe break free of some of that super high end time, hands on keyboard delivery time to make more sales? And the only way I knew to grow was through relationships. So you see on the top of the chart, you see relationship marketing, coffee chats, referrals. You see on the bottom, traffic marketing, one-to-many marketing with social media and paid ads. And you see things in the middle, like doing speaking or doing collaborations and using essentially relationships to get in front of your audience, someone else's audience. But again, I didn't have relationships in the space. I had relationships in corporate. I had relationships in the tech world, but I didn't have relationships with the small to medium sized businesses or the solo entrepreneurs that I wanted to serve. And so the only way I knew to grow was through old school relationship building. So old school network building, literally coffee chats, pounding the pavement, going to in-person networking events. That's how I got most of my 2022 clients were all through local networking events. I joined clubs and communities, both online and in person. As I started to build those relationships, I was able to use those relationships in a generative way to be presented as an expert through speaking or through borrowing audience through collaborations and swaps. And really, when I tell you that every subscriber was hard earned, I mean it. Over 4 years, because I really didn't start executing the strategy until 2022, and it's now 2026. Over 4 years, I did 52 podcast guest appearances, and I did 50 other guest appearances or sponsorships. I track all of this every month, which we'll talk about later, but I literally have written down every guest appearance I've done and every time I got in front of someone else's audience. And that was about 2 guest appearances per month, mostly on other people's platforms, almost all earned through relationships. And you might have looked and think, oh, well, that should grow your list to thousands. I've tracked the numbers. Each appearance grew my audience by tens, not hundreds, not thousands, but like by tens. And so literally this was a linear, one by one, 5 to 10 people at a time, building an audience that resonated with what I wanted to say. So, this is not about onesies, twosies. This is about compounding interest over time, done, 50, 100 events over 4 years means that I'm having to pitch 2 to 3 a month to get 2 appearances for 4 years. And how did I build those relationships? Over 4 years, I tracked this. I joined 26 communities or programs. So a lot of times, as you're building your business, you might join a course or a cohort or a program, or you're joining communities. I counted. At some point, I was active in either 20 and 26 communities or programs, not all at the same time. So over the course of 4 years, maybe I would join 5 to 10 in first year. Some of those carried over to the second year. I would join, 3 to 4 more and 3 to 4 more. So I got to know a lot of people by just joining communities and programs. For the past 2 years at minimum, because that's the last time I've been tracking it, I had 75 coffee chats, which is 6 coffee chats per month. And I hosted a workshop for free every month for close to 4 years. So I've hosted 45 monthly workshops. So again, when I tell you it was linear, it was join communities, get to know people, join communities, get to know people, have coffee chats, host my own workshop for 4 years, once a month for roughly 4 years. And over time, it worked to grow my audience. So you see from March 2021 to still like September 2023, I had still, for almost 2.5 years, I had under 500 subscribers to my newsletter. But then you see an uptick because people told people had seen me in communities and they heard me on podcasts and they joined my list. And then people told people about that list. So over time, like September 2023, which was when I know I did a couple of guest appearances, then you start to see it tick up. And then you start to see, it was still linear, but you start to see it pick up over time till about August 2024, where there was another uptick because I was featured in a couple other places, all those through relationships. Again, still pretty linear until October of 2025 when I published my book. And then you can see it really, step change up from there. But again, it's linear until there was a change and it was linear until there was a change and it was linear. So it took me 4 years, actually 5, really, when you look at it. It took me 5 years to go from 200 people on my list, 100 people on my list, to 2,000 people on my list. It worked. But this was after that relentless compounding of building the network through relationships, getting that guest exposure. So, but this is how I grew my audience. This is really the numbers it took to grow an audience. But because that audience came to me through relationships. They know who I was. They know what I stand for. They didn't join to like get a viral lead magnet. They didn't join because of viral social media. They didn't join my list to get some kind of freebie. They joined because they wanted to hear what I had to say because they'd already heard what I had to say through relationships or through guest speaking. And this teeny list grown through relationships has led to hitting multiple six figures. So as you see in the chart from 2021, almost all of that was contract consulting. 2022, it was about half the high touch COO, which I got all through word of mouth, to one-on-one advisory. You start to see the total top line staying relatively the same in 2023 to 2025, but the amount of time and the amount of money that came from that high touch COO work started to go down. And you see the group programs and the one-on-one advisory grow, but stay relatively stable from 2023 to 2024. But what changed was those high leverage, switching from low leverage, high money and the COO work and the contract consulting work to high leverage group programs. So I switched from serving a handful of clients a year in 2022 and 2023 to serving hundreds through one-on-one advisory, group programs, courses, membership. But again, it's less about the money I'm making and more about my audience is not big. It's 2,000 people. But these are deep relationships. Over 10% of my email list of these 2,000 people purchased something from me in 2025. And a lot of people purchased multiple things. So because I have such a relational trust built with my audience, I have people that are part of my membership, that have bought a course, that upgrade to the cohort, that bought my book. So again, we're not talking about 1 to 3% of your list buying. When you build your list slowly, intentionally through relationships, the percentage of people that buy from you is substantially higher. So you don't need to go viral. Now, to be fair, you do need a service that people will pay for, but my membership is $30 a month. And because people see the value in that and they see the relationships there, that is a non-trivial amount of money that makes up my bottom line. So you don't need to go viral. You don't need to post every day on social media. I don't. I quit doing that. And I was able to build an audience because I had something to say and people that wanted to hear it. This all happened without posting daily. I 9-graded my Instagram in 2024 and I never looked back. I don't post there on stories. It's just there. I don't post regularly on LinkedIn. I'm not using a content generation engine. I never had a viral moment. I had one reel sometime in 2022 that had over 100,000 views. No clients from that, by the way. I had an 8K YouTube video once. Again, my YouTube channel is 500 people strong. However, the amount of people that join my programs now and say, I've watched you on YouTube is amazing because they heard me somewhere else through a relationship and they checked me out on YouTube. I didn't have a 10K Instagram following. I have about 1.5 followers on Instagram. And to be fair, I spend more time on LinkedIn. I'm still not even over 5,000 followers there. And I would think I was like 3,000 followers until my book came out. I didn't have a sales team. I counted. I have done all 200 sales calls on my own. And I never used paid ads. I would say with a caveat, I turned on paid ads right before I launched my book in late 2025. But most of that income and most of that newsletter growth happened all without paid meta ads. Now, to be fair, I've also done some paid sponsorships where I sponsor conferences. I've done some paid sponsorships where I actually pay for ads in other creators' worlds. So there's a couple of collaborators who I pay them to put ads into their newsletters, into their podcasts, but I'm not paying Meta for that. I'm paying my friends, and they put me in their newsletters. So this is all happening without having to go viral on social. This is literally through hundreds of podcasts, and this is hundreds of guest appearances, and this is hundreds of coffee chats. Again, none of this in a particular month was, I didn't go on like a huge book tour. I didn't go on a huge podcast guest tour. This was 2 to 3 appearances a month for 4 years. If you're going to go through strategy, which I do recommend, it is nice to have supplemental income from the first couple years because it does take a while to build an audience. But again, the audience that was built through relationships is substantially more durable. Again, growing and tending deep relationships has been the most durable flywheel in my business. Not random coffee chats or networking groups that make your skin crawl, but strategic business ecosystem design, showing week in, week out at a pace you can sustain. I don't believe you need more content. I believe you need a rhythm to build relationships. Again, a weekly practice to build these relationships, not another one-time strategy. A pace you can sustain for 4+ years, not another 30-day posting challenge. There are 3 steps to relationship building. Map, who do you need to know and who do you already know? Move, thoughtful ways to build your relationships, not just wider, but deeper. And maintain, how do you tend to our tracking system so we manage our responses and thoughtfully architect our network? The 3C ecosystem. We're not just networking with our clients because, again, I got almost all of my clients through guest appearances with people who trusted me or being connected to people. So this is what we talk about: clients, connectors, the people who are your referral partners, the people who make introductions for you, and collaborators, the people who can put you in front of their audience, and vice versa. You support each other. So again, we're not just like, targeting clients with cold DMs. We are trying to build our entire business ecosystem so that we can be presented as an expert to potential clients. So when we think about building relationships, it's not just with clients, it's with connectors and collaborators. We talk about movement mechanisms. You need intentional ways to expand your networks. Mine was by joining communities and joining programs, and yours might need to be going on a 1-by-1 networking tour. You need to have an opportunity to deepen the relationship, going beyond let's catch up. So that's why I did a free workshop every single month for 4 years so that people who are interested in learning more about how I worked, I had a lot of collaborators and connectors join those. But that was a way for me to intentionally deepen relationships with people that I wanted to work with, that I wanted to collaborate with. This is how can you use your platform to spotlight other people. And then you have to intentionally invite people, thoughtfully move people closer at the speed of trust, one step at a time. So this is why when you join a community, you don't just, go in and start self-promoting yourself. You go in, you meet people, you get to know other people, you build those relationships, and then you invite them in to a collaboration, ask for a connection, ask to invite to an offer that you're doing. You invite people in. Once you've truly expanded your network, deepen those relationships, and then you invite people in. The secret to this always is what I call sacred sales hour. 1 hour per week, just do outreach to 5 people. So instead of trying to post on social media all day and figure out how your content's going to break through the algorithm, reach out to 5 people once a week. The reason I say do it once a week and not every day is it always takes long to send the first email. By batching and theming your outreach, you can reach out to all clients at once, connectors at once, collaborators at once, or think about how to do more inviting people or deepening some similar topic all at once. You get to prep your mind, collect any resources, get into a groove. I say block an hour, take 5 minutes of the brain at the end for reflection. But over the year, that's 300 outreaches, and it's more than enough to expand and engage your entire network. So again, instead of thinking about how do we have a viral moment, it's how do we plant and tend the seeds a little bit every week, consistently over time, to build a network that can support deep relationships, which results in deep revenue. I call this the weekly rhythm. PERT. We plan. We first pick a name, pick themes, decide on who we're going to reach out to, prepare what you'll need to send those emails. So sometimes you might be inviting people to a workshop or something, you just need a blurb. You actually execute it. Block an hour every week. Do the outreach based on the planning work you've already done. Block out another hour to respond to conversations, because when you send what I call pings, when you ping people, they're going to respond and you're going to respond to pongs. So respond to the collaborations, the request for collaboration, sending follow-up notes. The gold is really in your inbox. And then we want to make sure we set aside time to tend, because when you do more outreach, you get invited to more events. You get people who want to make connections with you. You might get movement on your sales processes, and we want to make sure that we're up to date on logging all that stuff. And then I always talk about having outreach levels. When your life is lifing or your client roster is full, one sacred sales hour a week. And I'm not talking about getting calls with all these people. You can offer to make connections for them. You can send them an article you wrote. You can send an article someone else wrote. You can send thank you notes. You can invite them to things you're already doing. But 5 people a week just maintains a relationships with this one level. You can hit your entire network with a thoughtful personal touch once a year. But let's say you need to ramp. So instead of, posting on social media more frequently, how do you do 2 sacred sales hours a week? How can you go on more in an intentional network expansion and network building effort by doing 2 rounds of outreach every week and probably having 2 to 3 connection calls every week? And then when new clients are your number one priority, my recommendation is not posting more. It's not trying to cut through with content. It's to have more conversations, which how can we have up to 3 sacred sales hours a week where you're touching base with 15 people a week? If you're going to do burst mode, I recommend no more than 6 weeks at a time. It's a lot of pings and a lot of pongs you got to respond to. And also, you might not know quite that many people to maintain burst mode for that long. So this is how we think about building relationships. We protect the time with our sacred sales hour. We are thoughtful about intentionally expanding our networks so that we can build those relationships with our clients and collaborators. And we track what happens. I came up with all these numbers to show you sort of the real behind the scenes of how it works, because every month I'm tracking what moves relationships. I'm literally tracking my revenue, which is not here, number of new members I have, proposals that I've sent, inquiries that I've received, email subscribers, the number of people that came to my live events, how many podcasts went live. But I'm also tracking how many connection calls did I have this month? How many outreaches did I send? How many pieces did I write? How many pitches did I make? The reason I have podcast appearances and visibility moments earned is because I asked for them. Every month, I'm pitching, requesting for collaborations, swaps, or others. So what relationships did we build? What new audiences did we connect with? And what were the results over time? So I track email subscribers and LinkedIn followers. That is helpful. But I don't track impressions, because impressions don't lead to clients for me. I don't track likes. I don't track any social other than follower count. Part of that's a vanity metric just to see what happens. But I'm really tracking what moves the needle for me. And in a relational business, what moves the needle for me is being presented to other people's audiences, doing outreach and letting people know I care, and getting to know and intentionally expanding my network. All these connection calls, almost all are with new people. They're all yes, I connect with people that I connect with frequently, but I'm really how can I every month get to know 5 to 10 new people? And that has been leading to, substantial business growth. So I encourage you to launch your own sacred sales hour. I encourage you to track what has happened for you and your business. And I encourage you to look at the seeds you're planting now. And how does that change the trajectory of your business, not in the next month, maybe not even the next 3, but the next 6, the next 12, the next 24, the next 48 months. What seeds you plant in month 1 might be the change in your business year 2, 3, and 4. It's a little bit every week. Relationship rhythms are about brushing your teeth. It's not deep cleaning your entire mouth every time. It's not about doing everything. It's about doing something consistently. Because just like in my business, that effort looks linear until it isn't anymore. So if you want to replace content chaos with relationship building rhythms, I've got a couple programs for you to do that. But more importantly, just say, how can I protect the time for myself to do relationship building? Because that leads to a durable, ongoing flywheel for you and your business. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out my website at deeperfoundations.com. Thanks so much.